Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'm on a part of the property that you probably haven't seen before. So I'll just kind of give you an idea, kind of up behind the house. Big old maple. Okay. So I don't know if this is going to work today because, as you can tell, it is super windy. But I wanted to do part 2 on having sheep on the homestead. And today's message will be why we no longer have sheep on the homestead. Lower this just a little bit. So as I told you on the first one, we had 3 different rams over the period of, I don't know, between 6 and 8 years. And I loved my sheep, even the rams. And we really did okay with them. Although, with our first ram, which was a bottle baby, that's when I think my husband really began to hate the sheep. There was just something about Rambo, the first, that he hated when Donnie would be mowing with the riding lawnmower. And so Donnie would be out like under the big apple tree or wherever, and Rambo would, mosey on up to him, and that seemed gentle enough and okay. And then he would begin ramming the tires of the tractor, and Donnie was totally unimpressed. I personally, I'm sorry, thought it was a little bit funny. But so that's the history of Donnie beginning to hate the sheep. So I'm going to progress now to our last sheep, which again I named Rambo. I thought that was a great name for a ram. I want to tell you, don't name your male animals aggressive names. Rambo, Charger, none of those are good choices. So try to think of something more gentle, like benevolent leader. I don't know. But anyhow, so I'm going to tell you some things that happened with me with the last Rambo. So with the last Rambo, one time I was in the western field, which is the one where the barn is. And we had all this cross fencing and stuff. And I went to go let him out, like I've done lots of times. And at that time, I think I only had 3 ewes. And so I went to the gate to open it, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Rambo tilted his head, shook it, and he did this kind of smile. That was really strange to me, and it was a big indication that he was probably in rut. That was the first thing that went through my mind. So I went back to the porch, and I got a half a bucket of grain. And I went out shaking it, because that's how you call them. And when I did, he and the ewes were right by the gate. So I just threw some over the gate. They began eating. I opened that gate and I went running to the back field. Oh my goodness, they're noisy. When I got about halfway through my backyard, I could hear them behind me. So I stopped and I poured another half or part of the bucket down for them. And I went running and ran through the gate, the eastern gate, and proceeded to dump that. So when I was about this far, I was pouring it, and I was bending way over and I did not hear them this time. And when I was bent over, Rambo hit me right in the rear, and I was flying, just like Superwoman, for a moment. Then I landed. And when I landed, it was very muddy because it was wintertime. And I'd like to say I landed in mud, but at that point I had like 100 hens, plus roosters, turkeys, guinea hens, and the sheep. So there was probably a mixture. But I had heard that if you got knocked down by a ram, they could really bust you up. Now, not necessarily trying to be aggressive, but maybe, playing, and I didn't want to do that. So I slapped my hand down very quickly and shoved myself up, and I was ready to grab him. And because they don't hit you if their chin is up. They always want their head down because they're going to hit you with this part of their forehead. And if you've ever seen any of the documentaries of the mountain sheep, when they bend their heads down and they make that loud crashing sound, their skull is super thick there. So I didn't want him to hit me with that. But when I turned around to, grab him and try to protect myself, he was no longer there. He was eating the grain with my ewes, happily. So I went running out the gate, slammed the gate shut, and began yelling at him what a jerk he was. When I got back into the house, Jason was home. And of course I'm covered in mud and poop. And I told him what happened, and immediately he wanted to go out and put Rambo down. I really had never had problems with him before, so I insisted that he did not do that. I would just be more careful. Although the next day I had to go to town, and when I came back, Rambo had a suspicious pink dot on his forehead and a couple on his side. And Jason, even though I wouldn't let him, shoot him to put him down with something lethal, he had shot him with the paintball gun. And so that was his first time playing that sport, I guess. So that was the first time I had problems, and I didn't have problems again for probably almost a year. And then one day I was walking out and to bring them from the eastern field back to the barn field, and they always would just go rushing back there. They loved it. I don't know why, but anyhow they did. And when I got to the gate, Rambo tilted his head, gave that smile, and I thought, oh no. So this time, I opened the gate, and, before I opened the gate, I picked up a stick, a board, and I opened the gate, and they all went running across, and it was fine. Now Donnie heard about this, and he said, I don't want you moving those sheep by yourself anymore. Donnie hated the sheep. None of my boys liked the sheep, and so I didn't want to ask them. And I moved them pretty frequently because it's a small piece of property and I wanted them to be on fresh pasture. So the next time that I went out to move them, I took a 2x4. Now I'm not terribly strong, but I took that 2x4 and I was ready for him. But he was okay that time. And he went rushing with the ewes, and it was great. Still being careful. Jason and Donnie are telling me, don't do it by yourself. They're never, ever volunteering do we need to move them now? So I went out a third time. And on that third time, I took a 2x4 again. And when I opened that gate, Rambo went running again towards the barn fields where they were going. And he ran past me with the ewes, and I thought, great. And he got about 10 feet from me, and he turned around and faced me. Cocked his head, gave that smile. And I thought, oh no. And he walked closer to me. And I pulled back that 2x4. And when he got close enough, whacked him right in the forehead. Now, I have never tried to hurt any of my animals before. And I wasn't really trying to hurt him then. I just needed to be safe. And I wasn't safe when he was doing that. So I went ahead, and I'm still holding my 2x4, and Rambo backed up again. He didn't even look like he was going to go to the barn. And he got a little closer, and he came and he charged me again. And when he did, I whacked him right on the forehead. He shook his head, kind of like it was a game. I'm not strong enough, I guess, to make a big impact. And he stopped. He backed up again. And when he backed up this time, I thought, no, you're not going to get me this time. And I prayed. I said, Lord, please help me to hit him right in the nose, because that he would feel. So as he backed up, I pulled that 2x4 back as far as I could, and he got within about 4 feet of me. And he stopped. And he turned and he headed up to the field. I went running through the gate to make sure I was safe. And I was. And I got right on my computer. I got on Craigslist and I said, small flock of sheep for sale. Because, see, I realized at that point that having to be afraid of the animals was taking away the joy of having them. And I didn't want that. And I also realized I wasn't able to handle the ram anymore. I don't know if I'd ever been ready, but if I wasn't ready, I wouldn't have them. So I have fond memories of the sheep, and I have funny memories. In fact, I forgot to tell you about one. This one was pretty funny. This was a time that I'd let the sheep out, and Donnie was home, and Jason was home, and some friend of Jason's, I don't know who he was. And Rambo had come up towards me, and he lowered his head to hit me. Well, I wasn't going to let him hit me. And so I grabbed him by the top of the head and yanked his head back and lifted up his chin. That's what you do. But he is really strong. He was 250 pounds plus. And I tell you, I think it's all muscle. And so I'm holding him, and it's hard. It's really hard to hold him for me, because even though he wasn't hitting me, just the movement of him trying to get away was overwhelming for me. So I began yelling for help. Help! I need some help! And while holding him, and nothing at all. Oh, here comes the wind. Wait just a second. Pause for a second. Well, I couldn't let go of him because he was going to get me. And I knew that he was. And so I yelled again, "Help! I need help!" Well, Jason was in the front working on one of his rigs, and that friend was there. And the friend was really funny. I've got to show you how he was coming to my rescue. So here I am, I'm holding the sheep, right? And this guy comes and he's lopping along. "Do you need something, Maria?" And I'm like, thinking it should be obvious. I guess it wasn't. And so I just said, "Yes, I need help moving this ram." And so he came, still lopping along really slow like, and he helped me. And it took both of us to get Rambo into the field. So that was really the beginning of the end. Oh, the wind is just blowing up high here. So now you know why I no longer have sheep. Hope you enjoyed this. Woo! I want to show you to see this. I better take this camera in. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house, out of your house, in the day and the night, and whatever you do, keep dreaming.